Welcome to Contact Has Begun, brought to you by the grace of the World Puja Network, one of the last vestiges of truth concerning benevolent, spiritually and technologically advanced off-world visitors. Some refer to these visitors as our greater family of man or returning ancient ancestors. I am James Gillen, your host, and our guests also include cutting-edge physicists, authors, teachers, and healers dedicated to the awakening and healing of humanity and the earth. Let the journey begin. Greetings, this is James Gillen with World Puja. We've got another great show for you tonight. We've got several things in the I'm trying to figure out how to say, it's Mandelker, right? How do you say your last name, Scott?
You have to pronounce all three syllables. Mandelker or Mandelker. Mandelker or Mandelker.
We've got Scott Mandelker on the line, and Scott holds a Ph.D., which combines eclectic Western psychology with intensive study of Eastern religions, and followed upon years of formal training in the US and Asian Buddhist temples and Japanese Zen, Thai, and Okay, so after leaving a monastic life, Scott earned a BA in Buddhist Studies from Naropa Institute, Boulder, Colorado in 1977. After receiving an MA in counseling in 1990, began a private practice in spiritual counseling, which maintained in San Francisco. And upon travels, he published over a dozen essays on metaphysics, Eastern religions, and spiritual meaning of ET contact and the UFO presence. We're just going to go from there since we're having so many technical difficulties here, and welcome Scott on this show. So, Scott, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here, James. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, there's so many areas we can go in here. We can take this wherever you want to go or wherever you want to start off. But I'm very fascinated, and most of the audience is fascinated with, maybe you can shed some light on us in your understanding concerning, our off-world visitors or the ETs.
Okay. Yeah, well, that'll be more than an hour discussion. I'll give you a really fast background on me and my particular kind of route up the mountaintop in terms of understanding and a perspective on all this. My basis is really Buddhist practice and theory, meaning I lived in Buddhist temples in my 20s and have been practicing meditation, for 30 years. And my entry into the paranormal and multidimensional perspective came from my own out-of-body experiences and the result of meditation, kind of opening, awakening. And so my interest, more than, documenting, proving that they exist or doing research, is really the interplay between the cosmic plan and understanding of multidimensional reality and, the extraterrestrial community, and personal spiritual path, and then collective human process, and then interplanetary development. And so I wrote 2 books that are published in the US and Japan, and I have a 3rd book online and a 4th transcript, which is like a book online. The 2nd book was called Universal Vision, Soul Evolution, and Cosmic Plan. Universal Vision, Soul Evolution, and Cosmic Plan. And that's really my area. Cosmic Plan really is a systematic understanding of multidimensional soul development and soul group growth. The basis is, to a large extent, the raw material, the Law of One series, the same material that Carla Rupert of L&L Research, is of. And she was the channel for the raw contact. And to me, clearly head and shoulders, that's channeling transmission of great importance and purity and without distortion from the level of higher self. And the level of higher self is actually the level or the dimensional condition of the elder extraterrestrials, the elder ET community that's very obviously benevolent, of course, but very aware of human dynamics, history, and the meaning of the current time. And so my work is really spiritual teaching of the principles of soul evolution, which then, of course, gets down to meditation and healing and balance and chakras and higher self and, an understanding of how our evolution fits with planetary and the extraterrestrial community involvement. And all of that is dear to me.
Yeah, what I found out in my own experience is that, contact comes with enlightenment. If you do the work and, you do your meditation time and your inward journey, that eventually you are going to connect with these, I call them benevolent off-worlders or the greater family of man. And I see a lot of people that get caught in a religion or a practice or whatever, and they think that's all there is. Or they'll say, well, I just talked to Babaji, what does that have to do with ETs? That's just, a distraction. Or they'll say, well, I talked to God and everything else is a distraction and everything else. And then they turn around and start asking you questions. And I said, well, if you're talking to God, then you should have the answers, So, it's kind of interesting, but there seems to be a lot of this kind of a smugness in some cultural and religious beliefs that they just don't get it, that when you do go into multidimensional realities or ultradimensional minds, you are going to have these contacts. They come with the enlightenment process.
Well, yes, I agree with that. And I think it's a complicated and subtle matter, that everything what you say I agree with, and then there's more to say and to expand the discussion. Mm-hmm. I mean, when for me, as you say, the result of greater consciousness and awareness of, what I am or what is, the nature of self, the nature of mind and reality, led directly to contact, absolutely. And that follows the principle, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Mm-hmm. So that's not outside of mainline spiritual path understanding. When the student, the one who seeks, achieves a certain comprehension of their seeking and preparation, then teacher contact occurs. The problem is, as Ross said, understanding is not of your density. Meaning, the quality of knowing deeply is not native to third-dimensional mind. Mm-hmm. And so, therefore, there is a plethora of opinion and disagreement and dissent and conflict about who's doing what, getting what's the truth, what truth is higher, it's all true, what's real, and the issue of levels of maturity, the issue of spiritual maturity is never discussed because, there's a saying in Brazil. The saying is, just because he's dead doesn't mean he knows anything. Mm-hmm. And so they have a long history with spiritism and spiritualism. And so not all contacts are the same. Not all extraterrestrial groups are developed to the same point. There are negative ETs, absolutely. There are deceptive elements, and then people, ourselves have distortion and delusion. And so, on the one hand, as we open awareness in balance, in truth, in reality, more teaching and a teacher in contact often happens. However, in my view, and in Buddhism, mainline Buddhism and Hinduism too, it's not necessary to have a cosmic contact to achieve enlightenment. But one who is fully enlightened is truly a cosmic being, very engaged in and connected with and active in cosmic community. Definitely working with extraterrestrials. But, you know, in Buddhism, they don't even talk about chakras. They don't talk about higher self. They don't talk about unity. They only talk about liberation, freedom from ignorance, and destruction of ignorance and freedom from suffering. And in the long run, that's all that matters, because, you know, pursued diligently, that one becomes all. And therefore, of course, they're a cosmic member in the community, but the path to that freedom doesn't require ET contact, as far as I know. And historically, too. You know, the Buddha wasn't getting contact with ETs to help him on the Bodhi tree.
Yeah. Well, maybe he did, but we just didn't understand his teachings. I know he had a little help climbing the Great Wall there. But you know, going back to the negative stuff, we should go from maybe ground zero on up. I always teach people that self-authority is imperative and discernment. And the first thing I teach people, even before meditation, is how to heal unseen negative influences and, you know, set some boundaries with these energies. And you know, it all goes back to the mind in which you seek is the mind in which you connect. And if you have ill intent or a big ego or whatever, you know, they will work it, you know, and they'll play on that, and those beings will step right in, and pretty soon, you know, you're so disconnected from your soul, there's, you know, you need to go get some help to get these things off you.
Well, yeah, exactly, in that negative entities cannot create distortions in mind or mind, body, spirit. But negative entities can exacerbate, intensify, further distort our pre-existing distortions. And so the way to be free of negativity or negative entities or negative contact is to be free of distortion. Mm-hmm. So, you know, before Jesus achieved mastery, he was tempted by the devil, so they say. Before the Buddha, you know, achieved enlightenment, Maya came and offered him, you know, the kingdoms of the earth. And so that's because both of them, the final distortion for any spiritual aspirant is to live like God, you know, pseudo-God king, ruler of the earth and all dominion, that kind of big, big power thing. And so it's only, you know, pride exists all the way up to the last moment before full liberation. So there's always a sense of self. And for as long as there's a sense of self, there's going to be some kind of aggrandizing of the self or some kind of prideful desire for me and mine. And the negative entity, just like the negative human leader, plays on our weakness. So, you know, people should be really clear. Why do they seek ET contact at all? You know, what's the point? What are you really looking for? And frankly, you know, I mean, I benefited hugely from the raw material, the Law of One series, in terms of integration of understanding. But frankly, you know, the teachings you need are out there. So what is it that people are doing when they want to vector them in, or they want more and more contact and sighting? I think that people are going the wrong way. I think people should be spending more time doing meditation. You know, I mean, I know you guys are doing that there, and it's great. But I think people, if there's something intrinsically questionable to me about why anybody is trying to make ET contact when they haven't used all the resources of self-development in spiritual teachings available here. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I'll tell you what happens here, basically, is that most people here are practicing Qigong, meditation. You know, we do our practices pretty diligently, and that's the core group here. And then we also teach classes in that, self-mastery classes and inner sensitivity training classes and things of that nature. that they're all geared towards, self-empowerment, making your own personal God connection and everything else. But what I'm saying is that there is this other group that otherwise would be unreachable. I mean, they're pretty mainstream or in social consciousness. They're in for sensation and things like that. And they come and they see the ships, and the ships power up, and it just turns their whole reality upside down. And then that's a step for them. And all of a sudden they go, well, who are they? And I said, well, you have to rise to the occasion. You've got to do your practices, your meditation work, your clearing work, and all this other work before you can be working with these beings. And so it's actually a hook in a way, and it turns out good in the long run for a lot of people. And I've always said that. I said, who cares about seeing a ship, or a being, or whatever? How's that going to empower you as an individual? And it's not important. What's really important is that we rise to the occasion and raise in consciousness so we can experience this cosmic community.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, the teacher is not important. It's the teaching and the integration of the teaching that's essential. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, for me, I'm just not interested in hooking the immature, frankly, or hooking the beginners. I mean, everybody's got their own work, and so,
yeah.
As you say, many people open mind in a great way on that, those contacts, the sightings.
Well,
for me, my interest is different.
Yeah, we do have people here that are I would call them masters, walking masters, and Buddhist monks and Taoist monks and things like that, and really renowned people that come here, and that they have a huge opening and an energetic shift happens when they come here and start experiencing some of these beings. And so even to them, they have an opening, or they have a new experience. And I know people that have been in the field for 30 or 40 years, all their life, and extreme masters. I mean, both in martial arts and in, the spiritual practices as well. And when they connect with some of these higher beings, they just go off and they go, oh my God, and the doors really blow wide open. So, to me, what I see is that a lot of times that some of these beings that are coming in here are, 6th, 7th, 8th dimensional beings, whatever. I mean, they're like God beings. Some are fully realized God beings, and it's just that last little step that opens the door. And the metallic ships are kind of boring, to be honest with you. It's like, I'm not in, the light ships and who's on the light ships and the consciousness and energy exchange, that's what I'm into. But the other ones are just, beings cruising around to me in fancy cars, basically.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm really tight in my languaging. And so, for me, if one has doors, they're not a master. So you talked about doors getting blown off. A master has no door because a master has no house, because the universe is realized as the self, and then there's no more door or house with a door. But I do agree, and I know the experience of witnessing multidimensional display. What happens is it's a changed energy field. It's a interdimensional energetic event, mm-hmm. and that itself is transformative and catalytic. And so anybody who's not yet an adept would basically be significantly affected in a very positive awakening, kind of breaking down of limited perception, or breaking down belief in the illusion of solidity and greater awareness just by witnessing those things, for sure. So, and as to the numbering, you talked about 6th and 7th and 8th dimensional beings. I follow the raw material, the law of one, in terms of an octave numbering, which is perfectly aligned with the 7 chakras and 7 colors of the rainbow, which is a natural formation. and the spectrum or the prism 7. So I don't go above 7 or 8 in that there's no need to talk about the master of the higher self, because we're not even living as a higher self now. And the higher self is like a bodhisattva. The higher self is perfected with wisdom in stillness. So for me, my perspective is more on how people can identify their own blockages and enter into their confusion and pain so as to release it, so as to make best use of, the illusion dream we're living in now on Earth. So, I'm really interested in spiritual teaching. So it'd be nice maybe if we can also talk about our perspectives on the current change on Earth and our perspectives on the community.
Sure, yeah.
And their input.
Well, one of our main focuses is healing, going through and healing old blocks and patterns, wounds and traumas from, past experiences, wherever they reside. That's one of our main things here we do is a lot of counseling work. But I'd love to hear your perspective on that as far as where maybe the Earth is going and some of the shifts and transitions it's going through and some tools and techniques to help get through those transitions.
Sure. My view, again, is an integration of a number of different traditions. Jesus was fully aware that Earth was entering the last phase before dimensional shift. Dimensional shift is the significance of the end date Mayan calendar. I don't really know if the dimensional shift process will occur, December 21st, 2012. I don't really think so, frankly. But the meaning of dimensional shift is that the planet achieves a higher energy condition. This is natural for all planets, or most planets that are moving up through the densities. So planets have 7 energy fields correlated to the 7 chakras. The 7 chakras correlate to 7 states of consciousness and dimensional levels, and levels of maturity of ET groups. So there are 4th density positive and negative ETs. There are 5th density positive and negative ETs. And then there are the elder communities of 6th dimension and up. The planet is a school. Planets are schools for souls to learn particular lessons or develop energetics and consciousness associated with particular chakra levels. So Earth is currently a school hosting elemental, mineral, animal, plant, and human, and Vedic, the angelics. That's the native development of Earth, is up to 3rd dimension, including the invisible realms. And the school itself is evolving to be a school at the next level. And so Jesus said, the meek shall inherit the earth. The meek meaning the humble or the love base, the heart chakra activated. And so I do not think, I saw on your website you say that, the earth is awakening. Earth and all the beings are awakening now. Not everybody's awakening. It's a choice. It's free will. In my understanding and raw, Earth is a school for souls, human level, who've not yet learned to love. The Earth is a school for souls who've not yet learned to love. And the purpose of 3rd density is to make the choice of polarity. Polarity means positive or negative. It's not good or bad, because it's all one. It's all God. It's all the infinite created display. But in time and space, there is choice, and there's the appearance of free will. And therefore, souls can go on what's considered a right or left-hand path. That's well known in Buddhism and Hinduism and Western metaphysics. And so there will be a new kingdom, the kingdom of heaven on earth, as Jesus said, means Earth has become a school or a 4th dimensional positive planet for souls who have already chosen the path of love and unity. The negative ETs represent those who've chosen the path of service to self, power, control, domination, evolution without love, development of mind and will without love. But that's not balanced, and it's fine, but it's not our way. Our way is balance, which includes love, wisdom, and service to all. So the Mayans were in touch with elder extraterrestrials, as were some of the Egyptians, as were some other groups too, of course. And that teaching was, prepare yourself, because the earth is changing and evolving, to no longer host those who are confused. The confused will go elsewhere. And that's called 3D repeating. That's called repeating the cycle. In my view, and Ra too, this is called harvest. And they say there are few, unfortunately, despite that, they said, this is an interesting quote, you'll like it, despite the best effort of the Confederation, the adepts, and the wanderers, there are few to harvest. Meaning, if we look around, frankly, most people are not living for love. Most people are very confused about the difference between love and control, right? People do all sorts of things that are harmful and say, it's only because I love you, or it's only for the best, that it's about control and it's not love. And so this is a very particular planet of souls who have a long history of not graduating. That's the problem here. The negative ET involvement is long and deep. It precedes Earth humanity. It precedes humanity coming to Earth. So the negative involvement was on Mars, it was on Maldek, it was on the Pleiades before they harvested 4D positive, and they're here too, of course. But there's a long history of human souls, or the souls on Earth now, not pulling themselves together and becoming clear about what's the purpose of their life. And so materialism and pleasure-seeking or rejection of spiritual inquiry or spiritual seeking is very much common and the norm here. The result of that is that they're not going to awaken because they've chosen not to. So people are sleeping, you know, and they want to sleep.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of a misinterpretation, because I've always said, even on my shows and my books and everything, that the Earth is going through a transition. It's going to be raising, doing a shift, and not everybody's going to make it. And we have to rise to the occasion if we are going to, we have to be frequency specific if we're going to go with the Earth and where she's going. And the ones who can't make that jump will, like you said, repeat. They'll have to go somewhere else and do their repeating. But now where would you say, according to your teachings, this repeating is going to happen?
Well, of course, there are literally millions of third-dimensional planets, fourth, fifth, sixth-dimensional planets or worlds in each galaxy. Each galaxy has millions of third-dimensional planets, and fourth and fifth and sixth. So there are many, many other third-dimensional planets in our Milky Way galaxy available for the 3D repeaters. I would imagine that there's probably a third-dimensional planet in this sector of galaxy where many of these souls will go. It's also likely that they'll go to multiple 3D planets in this sector of the galaxy. And, positive ETs will be helping them there too. Negative ETs will be there doing their thing too. Wanderers who are ET souls, incarnated higher-dimensional beings in human form, like me, or you perhaps, but many, will be there too. And so, the school is upgrading, and only those who are living from heart, which really means a clear sense of life purpose. It means that life is about self-development and benefit to all. And it's not such a big deal, you know that, but lots of people are not clear, Most people are not clear, and there's so much fear and so much self-rejection or low self-esteem, to me, is the real plague of humanity, is soul rejection. Rejection of deep mind, deep heart feeling and awareness is the great plague of humanity. And that's why humans are so easily caught by negative ETs and negative leaders and false teachings. Because they really don't believe in themselves, And it's understandable also because the history of the souls here is messy, Maldek is messy. Mars is messy. The Atlantis downfall is messy. The history of world wars wars up through the 20th century is messy. So all of that is traumatic. So there's a lot of trauma and pain in the human deep mind. And people have to face their stuff to clear it and release it and heal it.
Oh, yeah.
And most people are really not willing to face the pain that exists as a curtain or a barrier in the deep mind, on the other side of which is soul and love and glory and joy and happiness. People don't want to, sit through the pain to get to the other side. And the result of that is that they're going to repeat, because the purpose of this level is to learn the ways of love. And that begins with self-love in a positive way, caring for myself. And therefore, naturally, I want to care about others. Mm-hmm. So it's quite a particular, unique situation here on Earth.
It's a big wraparound. When you do love yourself, then you can love others, and then when you're aware of yourself, you are the others. So, and love,
yeah,
it's the ultimate power, and it serves, and it doesn't, overpower. It always empowers, and I think that's the big mess that we're in right now. Is there's such a heavy grid here of beings that want to enslave and overpower and control and manipulate and in service to self, basically. But as far as that grid, that I don't know if what's your opinion on it, but it seems to be just being ripped apart right now.
Oh, I don't think so. I think that it's being seen and exposed more, for sure. And, it's kind of funny because the Internet, is the creation of military intelligence, military technology. But the main result of Internet, I think, is the revelation or the uncovering of lots of negative secrets and lots of negative acts. People are really awakening because of Internet, the connectedness and the access to information. So, but I agree that there's a significant grid, of fear, and ultimately it's about self-protection. Everything you need is what you are. What we are is all we need. And all people really need to do is turn within, seek within. The kingdom of heaven is within. And if you don't seek within, you won't find the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven is not Christian, It's just about great love and care. But I don't, I don't know if the negative house of cards is being ripped apart, but I think it's collapsing of its own weight.
Yeah.
You see, in fourth density, there's no secrecy. There's no hiding in fourth density. So 4D positive and 4D negative, they know exactly where they are and what the game is. It's only in third density, because there's a veil in the deep mind, that people are so confused about what is and what isn't. And so I don't think that the negative system is being destroyed, but I think that it's being uncovered, and it also has to be, because, this is the time when they want to make a physical, social, manifest new world order. So you got to bring it out of the shadows for them to, you got to open the curtain on the new, on their new vision of prison planet for them to do their thing. But they're not going to get it, because there's far more positivity of the negativity on Earth, and Earth has already decided.
Yeah, that's what I felt. The Earth is going, she's chosen. She's going to do her thing, and there's quite a network of other beings to help this process along. It's just immense, the energies behind this shift. And those
right.
Those who are trying to stop this, it's like standing, in front of a tsunami thinking that, your little toy technology is going to stop this tsunami from just, running right over you. And that's the way
Yes.
I see it. It's just, you know, and I keep hearing the same thing. It's not like, you know, one time they told me that they were telling me that tyranny was folding in on itself. It was imploding. That consciousness, that density was imploding in on itself. And then I asked them, I said, so you're targeting that frequency of tyranny to help the earth shift? And they said, no, we're loving it, you know, and it actually targets itself, you know, so it
well, I think, yeah, I agree that, you know, loving the darkness is the greatest means of dissolving it. And it's just the same for the individual, as you know. I mean, the way we heal our so-called negativity or our so-called shadow is to bring love and understanding and total acceptance to it. You know, love your pain, love your anger, love your negativity, and it will dissolve. Because the act of loving and accepting and understanding enlightens, brings light, for sure. So you know, the negatives, but I don't think that people should fool themselves about what's happening here in any grandiose way. Because, you know, somebody asked me on a radio interview long ago, will there always be evil on Earth? And I said, well, there'll always be, you know, so-called evil in the universe for as long as the law of free will is in effect. And the law of free will is here to stay because it's by the Creator's wish. The law of free will is a great boost to the Creator's experience of itself. And so there will be negativity throughout, you know, the galaxies to the extent that there's the law of free will. But Earth is not going to be always a third-dimensional planet, obviously, and that's what's shifting now. And in fourth density in the future, you know, Satan will be thrown into the pit. So he ain't going to be around. The negatives won't be damaging or harming 4D positive. However, you know, they don't cease to exist, and they have a right to continue their way of evolution without love, even if it's diluted, and eventually they'll see the light. Still, that's a valid path to enlightenment, believe it or not. And that's something that Ra talks about, and Buddhism too, in that, you know, there are higher dimensional negatives, and they evolve without love, and that will continue in the galaxy beyond Earth's harvest into 4D positive. And that's just because, you know, souls have freedom to choose. And some go into dark, and they like it. So,
yeah.
You know, whatever. But I think, you know, what's interesting...
Master told me that once. Well, Master told me that once. I was talking to him, and he goes, you know why people are miserable? And I go, no. And he goes, because they want to be. And
yes.
It really struck me when he said that. And I just go, you know, some people do. That's where they want to be. And you're either getting emotional support or financial support by being miserable or being a victim or whatever. You know, they're running that program, and that's where they want to be.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think that we can extrapolate that to a collective psychological analysis that humans are, you know, controlled and allow themselves to live in a great restricted life because they want it, because they feel secure and safe to be led, because they don't believe in themselves. And they're afraid of their own power. They're afraid of power in general. They want power, but they're afraid of it. And they don't really trust, they don't really believe in their divinity, you know? They don't believe in their greater being, who they are. And so they want to be led. And there's some benefit, you know, to being in the childlike, infantile mind position, which is, you know, people take care of me because I'm a mess, like that.
Yeah.
So you know, I think that principle of what you have is what you want is very, very true. And it's the same thing with healing, you know. those who have made healing are those who truly wanted it enough. And those who don't have wisdom or don't have awareness and don't have healing or haven't done it, don't want it enough. Mm-hmm. You have to want it enough. And the same thing with contact with higher self, the same thing with contact with benevolent higher beings. You have to want it enough. And that touches on where you started, which is, the result of later awakening is generally often cosmic contact. And that's because the seeker wanted it enough. They want awakening, and they want freedom, and higher contact is part of that, but not necessarily. There are monks who are very, very well developed, and you can see them, and I've met them, and they're teachers. And the cosmic contact element is not important, but they're certainly, they know it. They are aware of it. But the focus is on, mind transformation, not contacting. So both of them are fine, but it's very much the principle of, you get what you want enough, and what you have is what you deserve. And if you want, it's like if you want to change your life, change your mind. That's the principle.
We have people come every once in a while, and they said, prove it to me, they go, if you're not for real, I'm a debunk you. I've had everything you can imagine here. Prove to me the masters are real. Prove to me the ships are real, and everything else from an egocentric, position. And I just started laughing, and they go, "What's so funny?" And I said, "It's not between me and you. It's between you and them." And I said, "There's a chair out in the field. Go sit and meditate, make your peace, and see what happens." And I said, "It has nothing to do with me. This is your experience." And I just walk in usually and shut the door. And some do. Some will actually grab a chair and go out there. And the ones that do have amazing experiences, but the ones that, grumble off and get back in their car and leave, more power to them, because that's not my job.
Yeah. I mean, I see in some ways your work is kind of the keeper of a sacred space. Mm-hmm. And like a temple master, like a temple, the temple keeper. And, obviously that part of America is quite a vortex, interdimensional zone where you are, it seems. And you sort of like, you make available an opportunity. But if, for people to make use of it or take it is up to them.
Oh, yeah.
And, so Ra said, service is effective only to the degree it is requested. And so, you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And so you make available an opportunity, and so do I. And that's what all true spiritual teaching and service is the offering of an opportunity. And the degree to which people take it and run with it and use it is totally up to them. So I don't really worry much about these things because, in my view, it was known even before the first 3D humans arrived on Earth that most of them would recycle, meaning most of them would not harvest or grow, in love enough to go into fourth density positive because it's a long, there's a heavy inertia here of non-seeking. It's the thick karma of non-seeking or spiritual sleep. And so, most people will repeat, but that's fine. So I think, like you've done and people who are really settled, we have to find our own way. And that way is a way of greater freedom and healing and balance, love, wisdom, of course, and happiness for us. And then naturally we're happy to share it, but only people will take only as much as they can. So, the world drama goes on.
Yeah, you can't instill want into another being, and you can't attach to their enlightenment. You just, like you're saying, all you can do is offer, what how to service, and hopefully when they go beyond that, push them out the door.
Yeah, I mean, we offer some kind of teaching or service or offering gift. It's a gift of light. It's a gift of love light. And, the degree to which people take it and use it is totally their decision. So it's the same thing with trying to show people, a deeper understanding of what's happening on the planet today or the reality of cosmic community. Everybody will take a different degree. But you see, it's also important, and I just want to make this point for whoever's listening. There are degrees of spiritual maturity. Not all ETs are at the same level of development. Some are really elder, and some are not at all. So there are positive ET groups that are fourth density. They are not masters. They are students. In a temple, you have beginning monks, and then you have senior monks, and then you have the teachers, and then you have their teachers. So the beginning yogi, the young monk, is like the fourth density positive group. The senior monks are fifth and sixth density, and their teachers are, late sixth density, the master of the temple. Their teachers are beyond consciousness. Their teachers are in infinity. Their teachers are in infinite light, beyond the formless realms. And so, the path goes on forever. But we should be careful who we choose to revere, or who we consider of what level or what development. Because, and I can see this in channeling, and I can see it in all spiritual teaching. There are messages that are love-based. There are messages that are balanced love and wisdom. There are messages that are really coming from achievement of unity and that level of enlightenment. And then there are, there are the Buddhas and the real avatars and those who are really finished with the game completely. And they're beyond consciousness. And they are, they have become, like Ra says, we no longer seek light. We have become light. And that's the position of higher self. Higher self knows itself as one light.
Yeah, I know.
That's not saying
they don't say much. It's just pure consciousness and energy, and you just get it. But it's not really words. It's more of a feeling.
Yeah, that's right. It's not differentiated. It's like a gestalt. It's like a holism. It's like an energy consciousness transmission of the experience of oneness. The all is one, one is all. And there's not much to say, actually, It's like in deep meditation. In deep meditation, there's not much to talk about. Yeah.
I know in martial arts, let's take that for an example, is that, you have the master teacher, and he has the basic katas and the moves and the things like that. And people practice those, and he usually doesn't do that. He usually has a student do that, or one of his students teach them, the basics and things like that. And when they get to a certain level, he'll come in now and then and do some certain things. But I always wonder, it seems to be the same on Earth, is like sometimes people, you're not ready for the higher teaching or the higher wisdom or that energy. It'd be too much for you. So you would actually have to kind of start out with some of these other beings that are a little more on your playing field, to help you get from one level to the next, if you do levels. I'm just using that as an example.
Yes. I totally agree. And the term levels is of relative value. Clearly, there are some people in the world who are profoundly loving the service of all. And there are other people who don't know anything about love at all. They're totally selfish. So if we want to look at a spectrum of love, heart chakra development, clearly some people are above or at a higher level than others. But, it's all relative. And we can also say that all is all, and all differentiation is also an illusion. So there's no levels, there are no dimensions, there are no beings, there's all the one love light field. Okay, fine. But, when people say things like, oh, Master Jesus and the Buddha were talking to me and God was talking to me, I know they're wrong. Because if you're not at the level of higher self, you're not going to get contact with levels way beyond higher self. It's not usable. You don't need your master's master if you're even at the level of your master. So it's the same with your martial arts experience. The master doesn't need to be teaching somebody who's not even at the level of a senior student. So, people are very proud and often grandiose. And so they want to say, the Supreme talked to me, and the Supreme told me, I've got to stop smoking, or I've got to move.
Yeah.
Or I should change my job. God told me. So, they're goofy. And so people they fool themselves by thinking that they're beyond what they are, in a relative sense. In an absolute sense, we are boundless and we're infinite. That's true too. So in Buddhism also, there's a relative view and absolute view. And that's, Buddhism fits really well with an understanding of cosmic unity and the multidimensional progression. Very well, really well. And so people should be very aware that, channeling is not a spiritual path. ET contact is not a spiritual path. It's an experience. And, it can only, at best, help you help yourself. But as you say, you got to do the work. And the work is really looking within and knowing your mind honestly and fully and truthfully. And accepting all we are, at the relative and the absolute level both.
One thing I was thinking about is that I look at the condition of the planet and this 3D, and everything begins in consciousness. Yet in looking at who could best help to turn this planet around and who has the best technology, both healing technology and some other technologies as well, as far as preservation and healing and restoration. Some of these, I hate to call them ETs. I'd rather call them off-worlders. They're a greater family of man. Some of them have full use of these creational energies, and it's just unbelievable what they have. And I think they're a really good option right now, considering the condition of the environment, the planet, and everything else, is by invoking, not just the masters, but some of these beings in as well. And I found it really interesting once I was meditating and connecting the dots. And what I found out is the Mayan calendar goes straight to the Pleiades. And Carlos Barros and all these guys say the Pleiadians gave them the Mayan calendar. In the Philippines, they point to the Pleiades as the ancient ancestors that are returning as the star nations. The Lakota do it, the Cherokee do it. All of these connections are pointing to this event that's going to happen, where there's going to be a major shift, major earth changes, everything else, and then a huge restoration process. So to me, rather than give my power away to them, I invite them to, hey, get down here, get your hands dirty, help out, all the masters, all the benevolent ETs, like, hey, any help you can give us would be greatly appreciated right now.
Well, they're helping tremendously and far more than we can imagine. Mm-hmm. And they don't need us to help them help us. But to the extent that we want benefit for the planet, then we're working together to share love light. But, there's something called the law of free will. And there's also a rule for non-infringement of free will. Mm-hmm. Now, the laws that pertain to interdimensional contact are different or it's a different application of the law of free will than the dynamics of 3D people working with each other. Mm-hmm. So, the reason they don't land on the White House lawn is ultimately is that it would damage the free will natural development of Earth humans. And we're talking about the positive one.
Plus, there's no
And
intelligence.
so, you mean on the White House?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. No, I don't even want to talk about America. America's a sad story.
Yeah,
but
very, very sad. But I think that's going to be turned around pretty soon.
Yeah, it's a sad story. I mean, I don't live in America anymore, and I frankly feel sorry for people living in America. So,
frankly, I feel like getting out of America, but lately, the way things are going now, it's unbelievable. It's like we live in Nazi Germany now.
Oh, absolutely. The screws are, it's the same people, and it's the same consciousness.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a continuation. No, I mean, I frankly, it's a good question. It's a long, long discussion, What, is it better to jump ship, or is it better to go down with the ship? Is it better to stay there, or is it better to leave? I mean, ultimately, you got to do what you want to do, Do what you want. If you feel right, stay, and if it gets to a certain point, then leave. In the I Ching, Chinese Qing, there's a hexagram or a reading called limitation, number 60, xie. And the basic teaching is limitation in small measure is good. But galling, Galling, galling limitation should not be persisted in. So a little limitation is helpful, but galling limitation really should be departed. And so I think that's the principle there. But you see, the real thing is the benevolent community is doing a lot, far more than we realize. And they don't need us to tell them what to do. But they can do more to the extent that we want love light for all humans on Earth. To the extent that we want to share love light for all, then we're working together. Exactly. But they're not going to appear, they're not going to transmit, the healing and the ecosystem purification technologies or whatever. They're not going to send that stuff at this point. That's not going to happen because this is 3D, all right? We're not out of 3D yet, really. And it would go against the free will of the people, the masses, the majority, that don't want ET contact. They don't want cosmic contact. They have their own, doctrinal God. Or they have, intellectual atheism. They have rejection of God and they're smart. Or they have some kind of emotional belief-based God religion. And that's what they feel is right and best. So positive ETs, are not going to shake anybody up. And the notion, you've seen it before, I'm sure, people who are talking about abduction sometimes say, and sometimes they're fine channels, even Lisa Royal, I believe, said something like this, that, or Bashar it was, if they can't wake you up gently, they have to shake you up, or wake you up in a shocking way, but they're just trying to help you. I don't think that's true. So they asked Ra about what's your attitude to all the sleeping humans, all the people who are not speaking spiritually. And Ra said, we simply hope to help them sleep more comfortably. Any real teacher is not going to shock somebody towards awakening. If that person is a dedicated student and they've given their life to their own transformation, then sure, the teacher may do something that's a little bit, shocking. But that's because there's a profound relationship of commitment to each other. And that's not the case with Earth humanity and cosmic community. Most of Earth humans don't want more than they have. Or they just want a higher social position, or they just want to be left alone, or whatever it is. They're not looking for, enlightenment. And you can see the response to the phenomenon of crop circles, right? It's been going on for 20-plus years. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
It's amazing.
They don't care.
Yeah, the people where it's in their own backyard don't even care, and they go, "Oh yeah, Doug and Dave made that," and I go, "Well, one's dead, and I wish I had their frequent flyer miles because they're happening all over the world." But anyway, unfortunately we're out of time. So, what is the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Sure, I have lots of online stuff. The first is my website, and that's www.scottmandelker.com. So the spelling is SCOTTMANDELKER, scottmandelker.com. I have a YouTube channel, which is TWS Mandelker, which means Talks with Scott Mandelker, YouTube channel, about 65 video or audio files up there now. I have a website, another website called talkswithscottmandelker.com, because I have a weekly Skype raw group discussion.
Okay.
And I also do counseling. I do counseling by Skype and have done counseling for 20 years. So anyway, just Google my name and people can find me, and I'm quite available for those who seek sincerely.
Great. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time, so I can't thank you enough for coming on the show, and I know we could go for hours, but the clock is run out, and thanks again so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you, James, very much.
All right, James Gillen with World Puja signing off. Have a great evening.